This episode is brought to you by the Weather Channel. What does the Weather Channel app share in common with a personal trainer and a life coach? It's an ally on your quest to wellness. What you do with its insight is up to you. Like running an extra mile when air quality is good, or checking your allergy forecast so not even ragweed can disrupt your chi. It's more than a weather app. What in the weather are you waiting for? Be a force of nature with the Weather Channel app.
Well, hello there, I'm Nurse Mo, and this is the Straight A Nursing Podcast, where I teach concepts and share tips so you can thrive in nursing school and throughout your career at the bedside. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be doing a PODSWAP with Kati Kleber from FreshRN. And what this entails is I've got one of my most loved episodes showing up on her podcast, and she's got one of her most loved episodes showing up right here for you today. So if you have not yet discovered Kati and her podcast, FreshRN, you are in for a treat. This is Kati's compilation of all her best advice regarding nursing communication, and it includes advice on talking with your nurse colleagues and the CNAs and the unit secretaries and all of those things that come with working together on a unit. She also provides some great tips on what other members of the healthcare team need to know when you're giving them an update, like the physical therapist or the occupational therapist, the case manager, the speech therapist, so that you can tailor your communication to these different disciplines. And she's also going to share her best tips on delivering really tough news and so much more. So stick around. This is a fabulous episode. I'm thrilled as heck to be sharing it with you today. And if you love it, and of course you will, you'll love hearing from Kati, then I want you to follow her show too, and it is called FreshRN. I'll also put some links to where you can find her online in the episode notes. First, before we do that, though, let's take a very quick minute for a listener shout out. And this one goes out to Lila, who says, "This podcast is an excellent supplement to my nursing school lectures. Nurse Mo explains concepts in a way that is engaging and easy to understand, and her latte method has been a lifesaver when it comes to studying. I always listen on my commutes to class and clinical, and it makes my driving time feel super productive." Lila, thank you so much for sharing your experience with this podcast. And if you like this podcast, you're going to love Kati's podcast as well. Thanks again, and I want to wish you all the very best. Okay, are you ready to dive into Kati's mega episode on nursing communication? Let's do this.
It feels like you can get your credit scores anywhere these days. Random websites, card statements, budgeting apps, heck, even your dog might bark out a few numbers. It's true, Credit Karma isn't the only place you can find them, but we actually do more with your scores to help you find your next financial opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! The possibilities are kinda endless. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. I've got another mega dose for you guys. It is all about communication, not textbook communication and therapeutic. Here's the textbook right way to say these things. This is like real bedside. Someone's not doing well, or you need help, or how do you navigate these situations in an increasingly online world with education? I saw a lot of people throughout COVID having less clinical time, less face time, and nursing is a really in-your-face kind of profession. Like, we're not online. We're at the bedside talking to patients. I mean, we are dealing with a lot of technology, but the communication piece can be one of the most challenging ones, from how do I confidently and kindly delegate or deal with someone I've delegated something to and they're not responding? How do I deal with a really chatty patient, or deliver even bad news? Maybe the physician delivered the bad news. Maybe you need to. There's so much nuance. It can be very intimidating and scary. And I remember as a new grad just feeling unprepared to handle those situations. And I feel like I'm kind of one of those people who has, I can step into those situations, I think, with a little bit more ease. But it was even that, even being a little more comfortable, even with like speaking with people I don't know, I still found it challenging. I wouldn't consider myself a quiet person, but I definitely still felt the challenge, even though I think I felt more comfortable than maybe most. So if those of you are pretty nervous about chatting with patients and navigating these challenging situations with all members of the healthcare team, I see you, I feel you. This series is just for you. We've got it in one big old episode for easy listening instead of clicking in between episodes. So the first episode is going to be all about talking to the people that you are elbow to elbow with all day. That means your nursing colleagues, those other people who are brand new, those other people who are far more experienced, and everything in between. Those CNAs, I found it most challenging to work with, talk to the CNA who'd been there for 20 years than even the nurse who'd been there for 3. Because it's just like a street cred kind of thing. And you need to be able to get that. And how do we do that, right? So we're going to talk all about how to navigate a shift when you don't have the street cred yet and you're trying to build it, and how to work with people that you're just meeting and set yourself up for success. So this means your CNAs, your nursing colleagues, and your medical unit receptionists. And in between each episode, I'll be sharing some new free things that I have created over the years since I originally released these episodes. So you're going to want to make sure you tune in to hear about all the awesome resources that we've got. All right, let's get into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome. It's Kati Kleber back with the FreshRN podcast, and we are going to start a series on communication. So this is geared towards someone who's newer to the clinical environment or someone who's just not feeling so hot with their communication skills. We're going to do an episode on how to get better at communicating with your nursing colleagues, like that team that is there with you throughout the shift, as well as communicating with people who just come by real quick to check on your patient or work with your patient and then will leave, kind of like PT, OT, ST, all the providers, as well as difficult conversations, talking to the actual patient and their loved ones, and then finally how to talk to your own loved ones. So we're going to start off with how to chat with your own nursing team. So I recommend touching base at the beginning of the shift with anyone that you're going to be sharing a workload with. Well, it is probably going to be any CNA. And when I start off my shift with my CNA, I don't just say, hey, and then just go on my day. I touch base with them. I wait until after I've gotten a report and I hear all the information about my patients. And then I'll let them know, hey, this patient's going to, take a while. They're, total care. I have to crush all their meds. They're paralyzed or whatever it is. You also want to let them know the chattiest patients. So the ones that will talk their ear off and maybe they're easy clinically, but you're stuck in the room for 30 minutes, that kind of thing. Maybe sensitive situations. Like I've had patients where don't let this person visit, or the person that's in the room is not the wife, that's the healthcare power of attorney, that's actually the girlfriend, like all those kinds of things. Really helpful to let them know that kind of stuff. And it builds rapport, like you're on the same team, getting ready to tackle your day together. Okay. And I like to do that with the CNA that's assigned to me. I don't also just go straight up and start talking business. I do build rapport, like, hey, how are you doing? What's up? Did you get some good sleep last night? Oh, that Starbucks looks good, or whatever, whatever it is. But I think it's important to build rapport. I also, at the beginning of the shift, if I am going to be in a pod with another nurse where we're going to trade breaks or something like that, I'll touch base with the other nurse and say, hey, how's your patients looking? Are they all doing okay? I want to know if any of their patients aren't doing well, if they're going to have any needs, like maybe they have a drip or two where they need another nurse to sign off, keeping me in the loop about that stuff. And when I ask them about theirs and they tell me, then that opens the door for me to say, okay, and then this is what I've got going on. The more you can be on the same page about that kind of stuff, the better, so that it's not you just kind of in your silo going to work and just trying to quietly do your work without anyone noticing. This is like a team sport here, and it's really helpful to be aware of everything else going on with other people. I also continually check in throughout the day. So I kind of touch base at the beginning, then I go about my business, but then once I get done with my morning med pass, I'll see, hey, how you doing? Are you caught up? If I'm, doing pretty good on time management and I've got some time, I'll ask my CNA how they're doing, my other nurse, if there's anything I can do to help. And I've seen some hospitals do this, which I really like. It's like this color coding system, green, yellow, red. Green is I'm good. I'm available to help somebody because I'm so far ahead. Yellow is I'm okay. I'm kind of on time with my things, but I'm not in a place where I can help other people. And then red is I'm drowning. So, if your hospital uses that system, I really like it because it helps expedite communication. And, you can quickly say, hey, what color are you? And then they can say, oh, I'm red. All right, what can I do to help you get to yellow? So so you're no longer drowning, that kind of a thing. I really like that level of communication. That might be something, if you're not doing it on your unit, maybe something to think about implementing. And then also making sure your other people are getting a break. And as you learn other personalities and other people, you can know who are the people that are going to take a break the second it's at all possible versus who are the people who they have to have someone else tell them to go get a break because they're not going to do it themselves and they think they have to get everything done for their patients before they even go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? You're going to meet people like that. So if you're working with someone who never takes a break, and it's, especially if it's a newer nurse, maybe needs a little permission, I guess. Say, hey, have you had a break yet? Have you had a chance to get off the unit? Do you need a second? Can I pass those meds to that patient for you so you can get a break? That kind of thing, because then they're going to do that stuff for you as you're reaching out to do that. And that builds a really great team mentality. So one thing I've noticed is, someone's level of urgency changes and they don't communicate that with other people. But, we're so wrapped up in our own world, in our own, to-do list and our med list and everything that we're not paying close attention to when someone, is walking at a normal speed versus a crazy speed, right? We're not paying that close attention to our other colleagues. Paradoxically, though, we think they're paying that close of attention to us, but they're not. I promise they're not. So if your level of urgency changes and you need help from people to safely take care of your patient, you got to communicate it. And that includes your CNAs. I've seen patients go downhill and the nurse, says to the CNA, hey, can you get a blood pressure on this patient? And I see that the situation is going downhill, but they communicate it in a way where it's oh, can you get this blood sugar real quick or this blood pressure, like a normal task. And to the CNA who does not know that something is going on, that doesn't know your level of urgency changed, they're thinking, oh, I'll get a blood sugar when I'm done charting. I'll go get that blood pressure when I'm done doing this bed bath. They don't know that we went from normal routine to urgency or broaching emergency. So, and then the nurse will get upset that the CNA is not moving fast enough. It's hey, hold on. The CNA has no idea. They're not in the room. They don't see that. And they didn't see that you're getting oh my gosh, their heart rate is blank or whatever. So make sure that if your level of urgency changes and you need help from other people, that you don't just kind of hope they notice, but that you really clearly say, instead of, can you go get a blood sugar for me? Say, hey, Mr. Smith and a 54, I think that he is very hypoglycemic. He's not talking right now. I really need a blood sugar stat on him. And then I'm going to call the doctor or I'm going to do X, Y, and Z while you do that. Can you tell me what that is the moment that you get that? See, that's very different than, can you go get a blood sugar? And same thing with blood pressure or any other thing that you might be delegating in an urgent situation. I find that people really want to help, and they're like, the moment you say, hey, can you come help me with this? I'm really, they're absolutely willing to help, but to like rely on people to notice that you're doing not as well. Don't just communicate clearly. We need direct communication that expedites things. And it's not being needy, because that's what we have to do as nurses. Like, we have to communicate with one another when things change, and not just like hope people notice us. I also want you with your colleagues to pay attention to nonverbals. Okay. Maybe they're frustrated, maybe hurt, maybe someone said something super rude to them. It could have been you, but let's be honest, it's probably something else. And so don't take their, not so great attitude, or maybe they're a little short with you. Maybe don't take it personally and just assume, lean in with some curiosity. Hey, I noticed are you doing okay? You seem a little off. You seem, a little upset. Is something going on? And then that can open the door to say, oh yeah, I actually really don't feel well. And I've gone to the bathroom like 10 times. And I really don't feel good, and I want to go home, but I don't have PTO, like you can open the door for that kind of stuff. So don't take their like short nonverbals or, their short responses and any nonverbals like personally, because I've seen that happen too, where someone's not their normal self, and then people take it personally, and then it turns into a situation that doesn't need to turn into. Even the talking point of, hey, I noticed you're not like yourself today. What's up? Are you doing okay? Because a lot of times it's stuff that's going on at home. Maybe a physician was super rude to them. Maybe a patient was, and they just need to talk about it. Almost have their like frustration witnessed by someone else and validated, and then they can move on and do a lot better throughout the shift. And plus they know that someone is paying attention to them. So that's another great way to build rapport. Also, let's talk about the follow-up. So let's say you delegated something to somebody, or someone was behind and you helped them kind of catch up. Or maybe a patient wasn't doing so hot and maybe you gave them a fluid bolus to help your colleague out. If you can circle back and check on them, that is really helpful. It lets people know that you're paying attention, that you care, that this is this team mentality. So if you can circle back with them and say, hey, you doing okay? Or maybe the physician was super rude to them. You chatted with them. You did what we were just talking about, kind of validating what they're experiencing. Maybe check back in a few hours later, see how they're doing, see if they're doing better. That kind of stuff just, helps people feel supported. And when people feel supported and safe, they work better, and can relax more. And then they're going to also be a better teammate to you too. So let's talk about those super awkward moments when things kind of go wrong. Like maybe you delegate something to a CNA and they say, well, that's not my patient. Or they say they're going to do something in a time frame that's really not going to work, and the level of urgency is high, and they're kind of refusing to do what's best for the patient at that time, which we've all seen, right? Not fun. It's hard to navigate that situation when you're in the midst simultaneously of some serious patient issue. One of the things I like to do is kind of reflect in that moment. So let's say I say, hey, can you go get a blood pressure on Mr. Smith as soon as possible? And they're like, no, I need to finish putting in my schedule. Then I would explain the situation a little bit further. Hey, so I get that you're doing your schedule, but I think he's very hypotensive and he's sweaty and his heart rate is increased, and I need to call the physician. Can you please go get a blood pressure on him very quickly? And if they still say no, which I really hope at that point somebody wouldn't, but I would reflect what they're saying. So reflect the situation back to them in a straightforward kind of way. So let me get this straight. A patient has a clinical need and is not doing well right now, but you're refusing to go do a task that's been delegated to you to take care of that patient so that you can put in your schedule. Is that correct? So we're on the same page? That's what's going on right now. You're going to do your schedule instead of taking care of a patient who is not doing well. Sometimes if you reframe that kind of stuff, then they can say, oh, all right. okay, fine. I get it, Katie. I'll go get it. Jeez, I mean, they're trying to see if they can finish what they were doing, and they're going to see if you're going to let them, right? Like, don't let them, don't let them get it past you, right? Like that. I think that's the nice try, but that's not going to work. This guy literally needs you to take his blood pressure because it's going to slow me down calling the physician, and this whole situation right here is just making it worse. Can you just go check his blood pressure? Like, by the time we got done with this situation, talking about it, you could have been done. And I would know what to do with this guy. That kind of thing. Let's not take it personally. I think that's when it turns into something bigger than it needs to be. Because if they're going to act like that, that's their thing, but we don't have to let them get away with that. And then if we're seeing repeated insubordination where, okay, they're refusing to take care of patients so that they can do personal needs, then that's a talk to a manager. But in that moment, you got to do your best you can to give that person every chance to get situated and do what they need to do before we move it up the chain to the manager, if that makes sense. Also, let's say somebody just does something incorrectly. It's kind of weird, right, to provide correction to somebody, but if you can make it kind of casual, it really helps. So one time I had a CNA who would just copy and paste everybody's her roundings. She just copy and pasted. If nothing changed, she would just copy and paste it. But part of that was range of motion. I'm sorry. Ain't nobody doing range of motion these days. Let's be real. It's kind of like counting respirations. A lot of people aren't doing that. And she was not doing range of motion, but that is in the charting, but she was charting that she was doing it. And so I was like, hey, I just want to show you something. I saw that you got all your charting and wonderful. That's great. And actually, it really helps me, be able to do what I need to do. But one thing I noticed is that you're charting range of motion, active range of motion on him. So he's paralyzed on the left side. He can't do active range of motion. And so it makes it look like you weren't actually doing it when you're copying and pasting that, because it's clearly not true if he's, because he can't do that. So I just want you to know, because I've gotten dinged on chart audits before where I was charting something like that because I was just copying and pasting what I thought I was supposed to, but it wasn't actually accurate to the situation. And I don't want you to have that happen to you. So I would take off those active range of motion charting things on this guy. All right. Frame it like that. Hey, I don't want you to get in trouble. And a lot of times people are probably just doing it the way they were taught. And they don't know maybe she didn't know what active ROM meant and passive ROM meant. Maybe she forgot what that was. I'm going to assume the best, without being naive enough to know that, hey, it's easier if I just copy and paste. That's probably what was going on, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. All right, next, I really want you to take some time to get to know personalities on your unit. It's going to help you a lot because you can gauge your expectations accordingly, right? If you have that nurse you work with that is super lazy and is going to do the least amount of work possible and is going to let his IV pumps run or beep incessantly until someone else addresses them, that kind of thing. You want, or if you have someone who is the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where they're obsessively detailed to the point where they're wasting their time on details that do not matter, but they just want to be right and they just want to get it done right. They want to know all these little details in a report, or they're really long-winded. That's helpful to know. Or someone who's always going to throw other people under the bus and they're never going to take accountability for being late with something or being wrong about something, or the people who are going to do the least amount possible at the bedside so they can kick it in the nurse's station and hang out. When you start to pick up on those kinds of things, you can kind of gauge your expectations accordingly. You're not going to cause personality changes in these people to totally change their work ethic, but it helps better inform you with yours. So, you can know who you can rely on. Maybe that guy who's super lazy is really great in an emergency, and that's the person you want to call on to say, hey, help me out. Because oftentimes, people who are very good at details, can be really helpful. But when we get down to like brass tacks emergency, sometimes they're so lost in those details, it's hard for them to focus on truly what matters because they've elevated every little detail to be the exact same level of importance. So the more you can learn about personalities and adjust your expectations accordingly, really helpful. So I encourage you to really observe, sit back and like watch how people interact with each other, how people respond to one another, how easily offended are some people. Like if a patient says something kind of rude and crazy and immature, which nurses take that kind of stuff personally and which have kind of that emotional intelligence to be like, all right, chill out, or man, he's not doing so hot today, but then they move on with their day because they're not taking it personally. It's helpful to observe that stuff. It just helps you inform you better to gauge your expectations accordingly. I also really encourage you to ignore gossip and don't like perpetuate it. Happens a lot on the nurses station. Conversation can get real spicy real quick. And I encourage you not to engage in that, because if someone's gossiping with you about other people, I'm telling you, they're gossiping about you to others. Be careful who you share things with that are really important and personal, especially if it's someone you know who's chatting with other people about everything on the unit. I have had people try to chat with me about things that I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I really don't care about who that CNA slept with last weekend. Like, I don't care at all. One way that you can kind of deflect that, because we don't, to be like a nice person on the unit and like someone who's fun to be around, but also like kind of keeping it serious, is you don't, when someone brings that up, you don't want to just say, I am not interested in hearing about that. Like that, you want to have a little tact, a little social skills there where you can discourage that behavior without being like sterile about it. So the way that I would do that is like, if someone starts continually talking to me about somebody, like, I don't care, right? What I do is I get very disengaged in the conversation. Like, I don't care, so I'm not going to act like I care. I'm not going to act like I'm interested in this conversation about something that is really remedial, I guess. So like what I would do is be very disengaged with that, but then I would kind of steer the conversation elsewhere and be very engaged when we're talking about actually interesting things that aren't at the expense of somebody else. And what people pick up on eventually, not right away, but okay, Katie's not fun to gossip with, or Sarah's not fun to gossip with, but she's really cool to talk about, like the latest Marvel movies, or I don't know, whatever like you're super into. Like if you can like kind of gauge how your level of interest, that will kind of teach people what topics to talk about around you that you're going to really engage in. And if you're in a group where you're seeing people talk about like negatively about somebody else, I don't say a whole lot. And then what I do is I kind of, like I've been in a nurse's station where these experienced nurses are talking about how terrible this new grad is. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, how insensitive and like not cool this is. But like, I'm around like everybody who's being mean. Like, how am I going to navigate this? And then, so what I would do is like, think of a couple cool things or good catches this person had. And I bring those up. Yeah. But did you see that she caught that low potassium or she got saw that the patient was having a bunch of ectopy and called the physician and got him, a stat BMP and realized they were hyponatremic or whatever it was, and got the correction, or hypokalemic or whatever. Bring that up, to counter that point, or I've done this before, like, oh man, I wonder what y'all say about me when I'm not here. Like, come on, this isn't cool, where you can make it kind of jokey, but it deters the conversation a bit. And I'm sure people may talk about, oh, you're not fun to talk about that stuff with, but that's right. I'm not that person that identifies with that. And if you're looking for that, you can find somebody else. Right. And if things get inappropriate, which they really can. Nurses are famous for locker room talk. I guess it's nurses station talk, where, like I'm saying, like things get spicy kind of quickly. And I know some very modest people. I also know some very not modest people, and we're all working together, right? And it gets to sex talk, it gets to whatever talk, and it gets a little dicey. If you're not comfortable with it, find a reason to leave the nurse's station, or you can be like, all right, guys, I get it, but we're not going to be talking about my sex life here. All right. Like off limits here. Okay. But kind of make it into a little bit of a joke. So you're not like, demonizing these other people, because you don't want to alienate them and have them think like, Katie's such a whatever. Like, we're still friends. Like, this is still cool to talk to you, but I just don't want to talk about this. Is that okay? Like, so if you can think of kind of a tactful way to communicate that, it preserves the relationship, or they can keep talking about whatever they want. Just don't be asking me questions. Like, I'm not talking about that. So you can kind of get comfortable in your own skin, confidently say that kind of stuff while still caring about the other people. It kind of lets them know, hey, this is my boundary. All right. I'm sorry. I'm just that like talking about my sex life or talking about, I don't know. Let's be honest, that's the one that gets brought up that people don't want to talk about. You can put up that boundary gently and not really demoralize anybody who's come up to it, but it's up to you to set that. And that can really set the tone where you maintain the relationship, but not, and still have respect for one another, but they just know, all right, okay, I can't be talking to Katie about that, or I can't be talking to whomever about that. So my last thing is be thankful. Like, if somebody comes and helps you out, even if it's part of their job, even if that's what they're supposed to do, like, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. That stuff goes a long way. You think about the feeling you get when, you come in, you help a physician with something, and they thank you. That feels good, right? I mean, it's part of your job. You're supposed to come in and help them. But when they thank you, it feels great to be appreciated for the things that you're doing. And that same thing translates to your colleagues, and that same thing translates to your CNAs in particular. So when they're doing a great job, when they're helping you out, when they're doing those things, I really encourage expressing gratitude, because, boy, that helps a shift go by. It helps build rapport and relationship, and build connection. And that's what can really make a shift run by smoothly, even if it's a tough shift. If you've got a lot of people who you are connected with, who you trust, who you can get through the hardest thing with, it makes all the difference in the world and can make work a heck of a lot more fun. So I hope that makes sense. And those are my communication tips for working with your nursing team. Next week, we are going to talk about communication tips when you're talking to other members of the healthcare team. Like I promised, I wanted to share with you guys another free resource that we've got over at FreshRN. It is called Nursing Report Basics for Med-Surg Nurses. So this is a little mini course. It's completely free, and it talks you through how to give and get report. Now, I wrote it specifically for Med-Surg nurses, but it could be applied to maybe cardiac Med-Surg, ortho, Med-Surg, step down, and ICU. The difference with ICU is you're just going to have more detail with the patient issues. I do have in the course my favorite report sheet for Med-Surg. So it doesn't have that ICU report, but it does have the Med-Surg report. And we released it a while ago, and I've gotten some great feedback from nurses that I wanted to share with you. CJ sent us a message and said, I'm not sure why, but I find giving and getting report to be more stressful than patient care. You definitely provided some helpful tips that I'm going to implement. And from my perspective, report was a huge stress point for me. And we dive into why that is in the little mini course. And I've heard that from so many other people. So I hope that this can take one of the most stressful things about your day and turn it into something doable. I wanted to also share something Olena messaged us. She said, I finished my first week of orientation on a Med-Surg unit, and I felt like I was all over the place. Haven't we all, right? That's so relatable. Anyways, she goes on to say, it's hard for me to catch up on things as senior nurses do everything fast and automatically. They don't go deep into explaining things they just did or why. I feel like they just expect you to know it, but I cannot know everything. That's my first nursing job ever. And all my clinicals were online through SIM and Shadow Health due to COVID. And it was so difficult to learn from that. I'm grateful I found FreshRN. It's exactly what I needed. I admire how Kati Kleber explains stuff easily and understandably in a friendly manner. I just finished the nursing report basics and I'm about to dig into the med-surg course. Thank you for everything you do for new nurses. Thank you again to Alina for sharing that with us. And that's exactly what we're trying to do at FreshRN. So many people are finding that experience at the bedside. These nurses do things so fast and quick, and they don't know to explain things, or it just gets really challenging to actually flesh out all the little details that end up getting skipped over. So my solution here, while I can't fix every interaction and situation in the hospital for nurses, I can create resources to help provide context, understanding, and just kindness, encouragement, and warmth as you try to figure out this, how to be confident at the bedside. So I want you to check out that free nursing report, little workshop online course thing. It's a video course. I go through various aspects of how to not only give report, but actually prepare to receive report. I feel like that one gets missed a lot. It's completely free. There's a link to it in the description of this video. Of this episode. So now we're going to transition to the next section of this mega episode, and we're going to talk about how you communicate with other members of the healthcare team. So, we've talked about our nurses, we've talked about our CNAs, and we've talked about our medical unit secretaries, or receptionists. These are the people that you're with all the time. Let's talk about how do we communicate with those people who come to the unit to see your patient or maybe some other patients and then leave. They're not there all day. And what I found out or discovered is these people come up to you and say, hey, can you tell me about your patient or what's going on today? But they're from a specific service line, like physical therapy, speech therapy, case management, and they want to know the update as it is pertinent to their situation. They, like the chaplain or the social worker, might not care that they were hypoglycemic a few hours ago and you had to treat them. You're not giving your full nursing report, but what do they need to know? So I go through or honestly, what these people are looking for from each service line, and also how to handle situations when you don't understand what they're asking of you. So we'll go ahead and get into that now.
What's up, guys? Kati Kleber back with the FreshRN podcast for another episode, and we're going to continue our communication tips series on now tips to communicate with other members of the healthcare team. So I'm talking about those people who don't stay on the unit all shift with you. That's going to be your physicians, your nurse practitioners, your PAs. That's also going to be people like chaplains and social workers, case management, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. They're going to come do their little see your patient and then they're going to leave. How can we communicate with them best? So I do encourage you, as you're newer to your unit, to observe the culture and how those different services work with your patients. Do you have providers who actually stay on the unit? Some places do. Some places have caseworker or case managers that stay on the unit. What is the tone of the relationship between those different service lines with your specific unit? So take some time to observe and get to know the culture. Next, I really want you to know what that person's focus is, okay? We're, as the nurse, kind of do everything in terms of facilitating care. And hey, they say they want us to do all these things and we make sure they're appropriate and we facilitate getting them done. But each person really has a different kind of focus that when they come to the unit to see their patient, they have this very specific realm of needs. So like for the case manager versus the social worker, like the case manager is someone who's going to be trying to get them back to the nursing home safely and making sure insurance stuff is taken care of. While the social worker, not as much, maybe working on things like discounts or cost issues or abuse issues or various social services kind of thing. So I encourage you to learn what each of these people do within their roles and what kind of report do they want from you. So that was a learning curve for me as a new nurse. I'd have a physical therapist come up to me and say, hey, can you tell me what's going on with your patient? And at the beginning, I thought that they wanted like full nursing report, like what gauge their IV was, what fluids were running, what their heart monitor was doing. Like, they don't want that. They don't need all that information. They need to know very big picture things and anything that might impede their ability to work with a patient. Also, anything that might not be on the chart that is important to know, like maybe the person in the room is their healthcare power of attorney, but they don't really understand what's going on and they don't know what they're doing, but the person's totally out of it, and navigating that has been a big challenge. Or maybe they don't have a healthcare power of attorney, or maybe there's 5 family members in the room and they all kind of fight with each other and like have the nurse or whoever's in there to like say who's right, like that kind of stuff. That's helpful to tell them, but giving them full nursing report, not necessary. But hospitals do have different preferences, different processes. So one of the talking points I like to do is if someone is asking me for an update on my patient and I'm not as familiar with their role, like what if it's a stroke coordinator? Like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what you mean when you say stroke coordinator, and how are you different from a stroke navigator? Like, what kind of information do you want? So the talking point I have is, hey, I'm new here, still kind of learning what everything is. So can you tell me what kind of information that you're looking for specifically from me about the patient? So people do like to lean into that teaching role, and you kind of have to give them permission sometimes and say, hey, I'm new. And when you say that, people tend to be like, oh, okay. And then they're really helpful in helping guide you and teach you what different things that are helpful to know from their perspective. So open up that door with, hey, I'm new. I'm still learning here. Can you fill me in the blanks about X or whatever it might be? And that's going to be a great way to build rapport with people. Next, I want you to be confident, but I also want you to be humble at the same time. You don't want to come in too hot, especially if you really don't know what you're talking about yet. It really does take a lot of time to understand all the nuance of all these different service lines and how they work together. And even if you switch from hospital to hospital, that really changes. So like, for example, I've had situations where when I'm working with other services and, they come to see the patient, they have their timetable set up, right? Like the way that typically works when you have a physical therapist, occupational therapist, they have a list of patients that they need to see in the entire hospital. Your patient might be on that list. So they'll see different people and then they have to do some paperwork. So they get on, they bring their little report sheet, they look on the computer and they say, okay, these are the patients I need to see and this is the information about them that I need to know, so that they go into the room knowing what's going on. They don't just walk into the room. There's preparation that goes into it, right? So if your patient is not appropriate for them to go in today, which does happen, they don't want to do that work in vain, right? They want to find out, typically what they'll do is they'll come see you first. Hey, is it cool if I can see your patient? Then they go back and they do all their little work and then they go see the patient. Okay. That's typically how it works. So knowing that with those different service lines can really help you guide, your decision-making and your communication to understand that flow. Because I've had times though where maybe the patient is clinically fine, but maybe we've got a procedure, or maybe the physical therapist needs help from me to get the patient out of bed, but I'm in the middle of an emergency or in a very urgent situation and I can't get away from the bedside kind of thing. That can throw a wrench into things. Or sometimes you'll have people come up and say, hey, I need you to do this right now. I need you to hurry because I need to do, I have to get your patient done in the next 10 minutes because I have to go to this other urgent patient. Can you come help me real quick? And you're in the middle of an emergency or an urgent situation and you can't. That kind of stuff comes up. I mean, there's so many moving pieces. How do you confidently but kindly communicate during that? So my talking point, because I've had that happen to me before, is, I hear that you need me to help that patient get up right now. I am in the middle of dealing with a patient emergency right now or an urgent situation. And as soon as I'm done with that, I will be more than happy to come and help you. But I have got to deal with this patient right now. And then, you may have someone mad. You may have them upset with you. But, That's what happens. People get very focused on their to-do list, and they don't see that you're taking care of 5 different patients who have 20 different people seeing them and balancing all of that. You're going to disappoint somebody. You're not going to always be able to meet everybody's expectations. And I think the sooner that we can come to grips with that, because a lot of us are people pleasers, and we want to meet and exceed everybody's expectations, but that is not feasible as a nurse. You're just not. People are going to be disappointed. They're going to think it's your fault, but we're going to have that level of emotional intelligence to be like, okay, they don't see the whole picture, and they can't see the whole picture, and it would not be right for me to explain that to them. So, I understand that they're upset with me, or they have whatever impression of me, and that's okay. I know what I'm doing is the best thing for the group of patients I'm seeing as a whole. All right, another thing to know about your people who are coming to the unit, they know your patients by name. They don't know them by room number, okay? So we as nurses typically refer to our patients by room number. So we'll say, we won't even say Mr. Smith, 88 needs a bath, 84 needs a walk or whatever, because we identify the patient with the room they are on the unit, because we stay on the unit. But these people go from unit to unit, and they identify their patients typically by name. So that's just a little tidbit for you. So if you call the physician and say, hey, can 8842 have a diet order? They're going to say, who the heck is 8842? I don't know. Because typically that physician is going to see that patient when they're on ICU, and then when they go to step down, and then when they go to the regular floor, and then when they go to rehab, like in different room numbers, right? Or patients switch rooms sometimes even on the same unit. So by calling them by the room number, not helpful. So don't do that. Use names when you're calling these people and talking to them about patients. Another thing is cool, not cool. All right. So this isn't like textbook, right? You're not going to see this in the nursing textbooks or your certification textbooks. But when you're working with all these other people who have different roles, there's cool things, there's helpful and nice things that you can do. And there's also really some things you can do that will make you come off kind of rude. Specifically with the most, I think, occupational therapy. Because occupational therapy is trying to see how they eat. They're trying to see how they brush their teeth. Can they take care of themselves? And hey, right now, it's your job to take care of them, right? But hey, there's someone coming in that can help take care of them. Yay, go take care of them for me. Well, we can't. They're here to do a specific job, though. They're not here to do your tasks for the hour that they're in there with the patient or whatever it is. So like, let's say your occupational therapist is going to see what it's like or how that patient feeds themselves. A not cool thing is to call an occupational therapist and say, hey, Mr. Smith at 44, his food is here. Can you feed him? That's not cool. Guys, don't do that. The cool thing to say is, hey, Alicia, I'm calling about patient in 8854, Mr. Smith. I know you need to do an evaluation on him. His breakfast just arrived. I was going to go in and feed him, but I was curious if you needed to see him eat. Would you like me to wait to bring in his tray? 2 totally different ways to approach that, right? One is do my job for me. One is, hey, let's work together. And I think I'm still taking ownership of feeding him, but I want to see if this would be helpful to you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the stuff that builds rapport. That's the stuff that shows mutual respect for their job and is not dumping on them. So consider that with physical therapy, with like taking walks or changing the patient, that kind of thing. Like the physical therapist, which to be a physical therapist, you got to have a doctorate, y'all. Like that's a job. Like it takes a lot of work to become a physical therapist, and they have a lot of patients that they typically see during a day. So if they walk in and the patient is covered in feces from head to toe, and it's going to take 30 minutes to clean it up, it is not appropriate to think that physical therapist is just going to do that, because they only have so much time to see their certain patients, and while they could help you and get that done quicker, like to say, well, it's your time to see the patient, can you just clean them up? Like, that's not cool, guys. We got to have mutual respect for one another's time. And that really, while they can help with that, it's not their responsibility. It's kind of like with us, with orders, right? It's the physicians or whoever's the ordering provider, right? The nurse practitioner or the PA. or the surgeon or the physician, whomever, if they want an order, they need to put that in. You could help them out once in a while if they're really in a bind to put in the order for them, but it's their responsibility to put in the order, right? So that's kind of the same thing. It is your responsibility to have that patient clean, yours and the CNA. And while the PT can help you get them cleaned up to expedite it just so they can see them faster, they shouldn't be cleaning up all the patients on the unit before they work with them, right? That's going to slow them down exponentially. They're not going to see nearly as many patients. It's not just about, can someone else clean up the poop, right? It's mutual respect for their one another's time, right? And if you can do that, like, it is going to pay back because they're going to see that you respect their time. And then when those those gray situations come up where, hey, actually really would make sense if they did this real quick, they're just going to do it because they know that you're not trying to get them to do all your work for them. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like a cool, not cool thing, a way to approach it, as you work with all these different team members. You also want to know, slowly familiarize yourself with the chain of command if something does not go well. That's something you really do need to lean on your experienced nurses on that unit for. Like, if you have a patient concern and the physician's not responding or they're not having the same level of urgency, it's not, all right, they don't care, moving on. It's your duty to keep pressing forward with that issue to make sure the patient's needs are addressed, and you can't just say, well, the physician didn't know or the physician didn't care, so that's fine. No, those are like famous last words. Like, no, make sure you're exploring it to the as much as possible as necessary to make sure whatever is needed for that patient is addressed. So, what that chain of command looks different for all these different service lines. So often for like occupational therapy, speech therapy, and physical therapy, they often have assistants. So the way that hierarchy works is you have a speech therapist or the physical therapist or the occupational therapist. They're the master's or doctorate prepared person. They do the assessment, they do the chart review, they make the recommendations. Then they make the treatment plan from their perspective. These are the exercises we are going to do. And then they write that in a note, and then the assistant follows through with it. Okay? So if you're having an issue with an assistant, you could always talk to the physical therapist. If you've tried to address it with that assistant and it's not working, the person above would be the physical therapist who's they're working under, that kind of a thing. So address those with tact and care and talk to other people on the unit to make sure you address it appropriately, because there are different levels of chain of command of how it should be done. You don't want to just have an issue with a physical therapy assistant and then try and call the director of physical therapy, right? Like there's steps to follow to address things appropriately, if that makes sense. And finally, this is going to be consistent with all these videos, is be grateful. Be grateful, be grateful. Be thankful for whenever people, hey, thank you so much for, changing the sheets for that patient. Thanks for feeding them their breakfast. I hope you were able to get the information you needed for your assessment. That kind of stuff. The more we can express gratitude to one another, the better.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Before we get to the next section, I wanted to share with you something a reader sent us. This is from Rosie Chow. She's a nurse in an orthopedic med-surg unit. She said, I absolutely loved med-surg mindset. Here's a long story, but in short, it literally changed my nursing life and myself. I'm a baby nurse who's about to start working in 2 weeks. I used this course for 3 weeks to about a month, and I absolutely loved it. What's special about it is that it's touching and very educational. I was not at all ready, even though I passed the NCLEX with 75 questions. I can surely say that this course prepared me to be a successful nurse, and maybe even more than nursing school. It literally runs through from A, once you wake up to get ready for the shift, your mindset, to Z, which would be sign off and report to the next nurse. The details that this course contains are amazing. It touches on everything, and it's the perfect course for future nurses. Honestly, I don't feel like I'm alone in this journey and have Katie in the background talking and encouraging me when I'm feeling down. I really, really loved your course so much, and I'm definitely looking forward to trying others as well. This course has got your back. Oh boy, I loved reading that note. The course she's talking about is Med-Surg Mindset. I have a lot of different crash courses, but this is one specifically for you Med-Surg nurses. Gets really nitty-gritty. I noticed that in Med-Surg education, we tend to talk about all these different pathophysiology situations and patients in isolation, but the key that I felt was missing was putting all of those pieces together and actually looking at being competent in a perspective of shifts. So while I could learn everything about GI bleed or pneumonia or something, it's hard to contextualize or synthesize that into how that fits into a normal shift. Like when I have 4 or 5 other patients that have different disease processes. So the way it really works in this course is we spend a lot of time on time management, prioritization, delegation, those kinds of things, as well as, hey, here are the top disease processes you're probably going to see and the level of detail necessary for you to actually really take good care of those patients. So it is a way to have that all make a lot more sense. We have options where you can just purchase the course outright, where you have the course lifetime access to it and you can refer to it at any time. Or we now have our all access pass where you can pay a monthly fee and you have access to all of our courses, which is great if you find yourself floating a lot, maybe to the cardiac unit, to ortho, neuro, that kind of thing, because we have those other courses available. But this one is specifically for those of you who are starting out on Med-Surg. And I don't know, some people can hate on Med-Surg. I really liked it because you got a little bit of everything and it really sets a solid, firm foundation, nursing foundation for those of us who are not sure what we want to do, who like variety, and it really gets your skills pumped up. And something that we added recently with Med-Surg Mindset, anyone who enrolls in it, they will automatically be enrolled in our nursing skills refresh course, where it's a video course of me and another nurse going through the most common skills that a bedside nurse is going to be responsible for performing. And we give you little tips and tricks and show you what it looks like so that when you're actually at the bedside, you feel more confident. That degree of familiarity is really important. So that is everything about Med-Surg Mindset. If you want to learn more about it, I have got a link to it in the description of this episode. So now let's dig into the next section where we're going to be talking about communication tips for patients and their support systems. These are going to be things that you can do right off the bat to enable your patient to feel more confident with you. And that's not going to be saying all this really complex, high-level medical stuff. It's a very different way to approach it, and it's actually much more doable, relatable, and it's simple things that you can do, and it'll help you feel a lot more confident too. So let's go ahead and dig into those things as well as, how to just succeed at the bedside in a simple way. All right, let's dig into it.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the FreshRN podcast. I'm Kati Kleber, and we're going to continue our communication tips series. So this week, we're going to chat about communication tips for talking to patients and their loved ones, support systems, all that jazz. I've learned a few things over the last 11 years in working with patients. There's very tiny things that we can do throughout a shift that really decrease their anxiety and increase their trust. When we do that, they unclench and they can trust us more and allow us to just do our job. Give us that space to get things done for their loved one in a timely manner. They believe what we say and are on board. And I think that's really important to facilitate a good relationship with them, because it's very difficult to take good care of somebody when you're constantly being questioned, when you constantly have to explain every little thing, when one explanation isn't enough, and then they're very hyper vigilant and questioning everybody who comes into the room and their intentions. So let's talk about how we can facilitate an environment that's trusting and supportive. One of the things I think is really important is predictability. This is especially important in the ICU setting or the emergency department setting, where things are scary and things are changing so quickly. Any degree of predictability, even if it's small, is something that can decrease anxiety. So what does this look like? When you go in the room, you tell them, hey, maybe you're going for the beginning of the shift. All right, I'm going to come in. We're going to do some meds and assessment, talk about the plan for the day, kind of get you situated in bed and answer any questions you have. Follow through with that before you leave. All right, is there anything else I can get for you guys? And then you say, all right, so I'm going to go see my other patient and kind of do the same thing with them. And then I'm going to check on you guys when I'm done, hopefully in about 30 or 45 minutes. And then basically that kind of means whenever you go in the room, tell them what you're about to do and what they can expect, maybe in the next hour or between the times that you're going to see them again. So, if I was going in at the beginning of the shift and I said what I already said, and I know, okay, we've got a CT today. They've got to have labs drawn at noon. I'm going to hang some vanc later. I'm going to titrate these drips. I'm going to try to get rid of one of the drips. Those kind of things. Or we know physical therapies come in. I want to tell them that. Like, okay, we've got a CT scan scheduled today. It's supposed to be about 24 hours after you had your TPA yesterday. So that looks like it'll probably be around 1 or so. So whenever the CT scan department calls me, I'll let you know when we have a time when we're going to go down and get that scan. I also need to draw labs a little bit later. We'll also do some antibiotics in your IV at a different time, at whatever time it is, so they can know, okay, this is what's going to go on today. It gives them some semblance of control and predictability and okay, I know that these things are going to happen. It's not like they're sitting in there just waiting for someone else to come in at any moment. They can kind of okay, I know that these people are going to come at these times. And if people come in the middle, it's not as disruptive as constant unpredictability of who's going to be in the room next. Okay, great. Physical therapy was just here 10 minutes ago, and now lab is here, and then the physician's going to come in, and you want to provide any predictability that you can, even if it's as small as the next time you're going to be in the room or the CNA is going to be in the room. And as much as I hate whiteboards, they do make sense with this. If you can put on the whiteboard your name, maybe when the next pain pill is due, if you're having trouble controlling pain, whatever concerns or any predictability aspects that you can put on there is helpful. Now, the caveat with whiteboards is when you're so drowning in basic patient care, the whiteboard's the last thing you care about, right? I get that. I absolutely get that. But it does make sense from a patient standpoint to chill them out a little bit. And their loved one, especially if you can tell if it's a hypervigilant loved one, that can just really save you a headache later. So consider doing that. As much as we hate the whiteboard, it can serve. I will relent. It can serve some purpose. Also, another thing at the beginning of the shift, when you start off at the beginning of the shift, that can make such a big difference. So instead of being that meek and hey, I'm Katie, I'm here to take care of your loved one. Okay, let me know if you need anything. Bye. If you have any questions, okay, bye. Please don't talk to me. What if we came in with a little bit of confidence, not an air of confidence, but just a little bit to the point where you just kind of feel comfortable with yourself and feel comfortable in your own skin and in your own role. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm going to be your father's nurse today. this is what we're going to do today. It looks like we've got an order for this and this. The goals are going to be to get rid of these drips. Maybe sit up and get a speech evaluation, see if we can eat, or, whatever the goals happen to be that you know of, that you got in report that, hey, we're going to try to get them extubated and we're going to try to get rid of the levo. Translate that to them so they understand what we're working towards. That can really make a difference. And again, unclench. While you don't have time frames necessarily for when the vent might be weaned off or when the levo might come off, it's giving them oh, that's what we're going to try to do today. And that, again, helps people unclench. And that confidence, that not arrogant confidence, but kind of a humble confidence, helps people feel safe with you, okay? It helps people trust that you know what you're doing. And even if you're still learning and figuring it out, you can still have that. You can still have that ability to come into a room. I'm Katie. I'm on orientation. Mike is the nurse that's with me. We're going to be working together to take care of your dad. I will be with you all day. I want you to know you're in great hands. Mike is a wonderful nurse, and I'm really excited to learn from him, and we're going to be working together. Just communicating like that instead of hi, I'm Katie. I'm a newer nurse, and I'm working with Mike today. Okay. The way that you can portray yourself is so different with both of those. So I just encourage kind of trying to step into that, and because it really can benefit your patients. Next, I want you to build trust early. So you can do this with something small, even can I get you anything? And then actually going to get the thing and bringing it back. I have an example of one I did, and I may have mentioned this before in the podcast, but one time I came in and I had a patient. She had come in over the weekend with a stroke and had, failed the swallow avail from the nursing staff. So she had to be evaluated by speech, but she wasn't this big emergency in it. She came in at a weird time where she went a day or so. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was too long for the family member, his comfort, because she hadn't had anything to eat. It really worried him that she hasn't had anything to eat. And she really was that borderline person of, is she silently aspirating? We don't know. I can't tell. So, I came in, I think I was Monday day shift, and he was irate that she had not had anything to eat. And I was told this before going into the room. So what I did was I kind of leaned into that right away. And I said, hey, Mr. Smith, I don't remember what his name was. I hear that your wife, she didn't pass that swallow eval. We haven't been able to get her anything to eat safely. And I know that getting her something to eat is really important to you. So I want to let you know what I'm going to do. Speech therapy arrives at 8 a.m. And right now, I think at that time it was 7 a.m., right? Because the report was at 7. And I said to him, as soon as they answer their phones, as they're able to answer their phone, I'm going to call them and I'm going to see if we can get your wife to be seen first and get this taken care of so that they can evaluate her swallowing, see if it's safe, and if it is, get her something that is safe to eat right away. How does that sound? And you could just see kind of the tension, just kind of okay. This person hears that I am upset about something. There is a plan to address it. And he was still upset, but he was still controlled upset instead of I'm so upset I don't know what to do with myself, right? We kind of went down a level, which was what we needed, right? So, and I did just that. I called speech right when they opened and said, hey, I just want to let you know about this situation. Let them know, hey, I think that the sooner we can see this guy or this patient will be really good for everybody. And they were very understanding and were helpful because they also don't want to go into the room and have someone irate at them, right? We're kind of working together to address this situation. So once I talked to them at 8, they said, okay, we're going to do our chart review. I'm going to just make sure there isn't any emergencies and I will be there by 8:30 or something like that. So as soon as I talked to them, I went into the room and let them know, hey, talk to speech therapy. That's me following through with what I said I was going to do. That's what they want to see. So I just want to let you know, talk to speech therapy. She is looking at her chart right now. She's just going to make sure there isn't an emergency going on somewhere else, get prepared, and then she'll be up here. How does that sound? And he was just thank you. And the rest of the day, I think she had pretty like straightforward care, like post-stroke, wasn't anything crazy. And he was just so complimentary and so kind. It was just like, so glad that someone heard his concern and that got it taken care of. And it was something small. Like I called speech therapy at 8 a.m. It wasn't that, wasn't very heroic, but to that guy, that was the most important thing in the world. The patient the patient, she was, I don't know if it was as nearly as important to him, but like those little things can make such a big difference. So if you can follow through with those kinds of things, or even like small, like, oh, can I get you a warm blanket? Oh, we don't have any, but I'm going to put some in there, and in a little bit, I'm going to let them get toasty for you. I'm going to bring one back. And then when they see that you follow through, that you're true to your word, they trust you more, they chill more, they relax more, which is what you need. Okay. Next, you really want to build that team mentality. I think people come into the hospital and think that it is patient and family versus the hospital staff, and we're at odds with each other and like fighting to get out of the hospital and be okay. And it's kind of adversarial. Like they feel like they have to advocate constantly to you, and it's a tough place to be. And it's a hard place, I think, for us to make a trusting therapeutic connection. Oh boy, I just sounded like a nursing textbook, didn't I? Wow. Oh boy. But I think that's true. Like it's hard to really collaborate with them if we're at odds with one another. So anything that we can do to dissipate the us versus them mentality is really important. It'll turn like conflict into collaboration, and I think that's really important. It'll make your job easier if you're not having that hypervigilant person constantly questioning you. So little things that we can do is, are there any concerns that you have? How can I work with you, and how can we address that? What kinds of questions do you have? How can I answer those? I have an example of a time this happened with me. I had a patient who did not want to go to a nursing home. Understandably so. But he was very weak, and he also had a lot of antibiotics for a very, very serious infection. Like, you need these antibiotics to survive, and if you don't go through this, this infection is going to be very, very, probably going to be terminal. So I and the way it kind of happened was kind of sad, where how this medical team comes in and says, okay, you need to go to the nursing home. And he's like, no, like he was very, I'm not doing that. And it was very us versus them. One of the physicians, I wasn't in there, I was in with another patient, and one of the physicians came to me and was like, so he's refusing to go to the nursing home, oh, he's not doing what we want him to, kind of thing. So I was like, let me get a few minutes with the guy. And so I let him chill out, and then I came in a few minutes later and was like, hey, tell me what happened. What's going on? I let him tell me his version of the story. And I was like, okay, so tell me why going there is a no-go for you. And I let him tell me why he's nervous and doesn't want to go. And I was like, I hear you. I so hear you. I would not want to do that either. I do want you to understand, though, what you might be facing if you make this decision, and how it might actually make things overall harder. Where if you could go to the nursing home now for a week or two and finish these antibiotics, you could probably go home. But if you just go home right now and you let this infection rage in you, you're going to come back to me and you're not going to leave. I need you to understand that before you make this decision. And I'm not trying to tell you have to do this. You have the power to make this decision. This is the ball is completely in your court. I think you need to know what will happen either way. So he was like, okay, I just want to think about it. I just need some time. All right, cool. I'm here if you need questions. If you have any questions, I'm right here with you. I'm on your team. I want whatever's going to be the best decision. And it would not be right of me to not explain it so you fully understand the gravity of this situation. And he was like, okay. He took him an hour or two, and then he called me back in and he said, okay, I'll do it. I know I need to.
I really appreciate you explaining that to me in that way. So sometimes if you can just give people like hey, I'm not trying to come down and tell you got to do all these things. I probably skipped a few steps here by telling you have to do this. I want to go back around and explain fully what's going on here, and that this truly is not just to punish you or something, but this is going to be like big picture, the best way, the fastest way to recovery, and not having to keep coming back to the hospital. So the way, if you can frame things like, we're on the same team here. I need to know what you want to do and what is important to you and how we can make that happen and work together. Boy, they hear that and it's like, okay, all right, I'll meet you part of the way. You are meeting me part of the way. And that's when you guys work together and get whatever needs to happen to go down. And that's the rewarding stuff. It really is. All right, let's talk about when you do get those kind of misunderstandings and issues where miscommunications, those happen all the time. Lost in translation, you're saying something and you think they understand, but they don't actually understand and don't really know what they were agreeing to. It kind of reminds me when my daughter, she's 5 right now, and I'll say, hey, do you want to do this? And she'll say yes, and then it'll be time to do it, and she'll go, well, wait. I don't think I knew what I was saying yes to. Which I so appreciate that, oh wait, I didn't know what I was agreeing to. I think I was just trying to be agreeable. So backing up, okay, so here's what's going on. If someone seems angry or upset, I think the emotionally mature way to navigate that is to say something, is to lean in with curiosity. So let's not take it personally. Let's not avoid it because that's just going to make it worse. But lean in with curiosity. Hey, you seem upset. Can you tell me what's going on? I'm going to do what I can to help fix whatever's going on. And hear what they have to say. Maybe they are upset about something. They know it's outside of their control. They know there's nothing you can do about it. But just saying, hey, I'm really mad that I am not going to this test today because someone brought in food and I ate it, but I didn't know I couldn't eat. That's legit to be mad about. I get that. So, letting them have space to express feelings without judgment, without you absorbing them and taking them personally, and validating, acknowledging, doing what you can to make whatever you can right. Boy, that can make a big difference. So encourage you to lean into those with curiosity. Do not avoid them. Truly, most people just want their concerns to be heard and validated, not necessarily have this big, elaborate action plan of fixing it with something that's out of your control, right? So I encourage you to lean in with curiosity. I'm curious if you had the same experience I did as a new nurse. I was given this explanation in school and took a class and all that on assessments. And what was talked about in class and what's outlined in the textbook is vastly different than what the bedside nurses are doing. Nurses are doing something much more abbreviated, and it's not at all feasible to do what the textbook says in a clinical setting. There's the assessment techniques that are outlined are so long, and you don't know when you need to do what. So what I decided to do to help those of you who are newer at the bedside and give you a starting place. So instead of giving you everything under the sun and then expecting you to kind of figure out on the what to actually do, I decided to take what I realistically did at the bedside to assess a cardiac patient, and I wrote a checklist. You have all of the textbook information that you could dive deeper and add things that you would like to, but I wanted to give you a place to start from. So I have a PDF download of what I would realistically do at the bedside in a cardiac med-surg environment of how I would walk through a patient assessment. It is a 1-page checklist. I have a link to it in the description of this episode, and you can click on that and you will get that sent to you absolutely free. So I hope that approach can make sense and help kind of synthesize what's in the textbook to actual bedside care, give you a little place to start from, and also hopefully enable you to really wow your preceptor, wow your the nurse that you're working with, so that you have this understanding kind of before you go to the bedside. And you can print it off, put it in your clipboard, and then before you know it, you're going to have it completely memorized. And you're going to notice on the unit, okay, maybe they do this as well, or maybe there's a thing on here that we don't really do. And you can tweak it for your needs specifically. So go to the link in the description of this video for my free cardiac checklist and put your email in, and you will get that sent to you right away. And you can save it to your device and you can download it for quick reference. So let's get back to our episodes. We are now going to talk more about patients, but from a different perspective. We're going to be talking not just about your everyday conversation, but really those difficult ones. Maybe they got life-changing news. Being in that moment is really scary. Big moment. You kind of don't know what to do. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to ruin the moment. You want to just be there. And those were so weird to be in at first. And especially for those of you where English is not your first language. It's really hard to read that and then know what to say and what not to say. And I think that this will really help kind of navigate those cultural differences that might be present, or maybe just, I don't know, even if you are a native English speaker, just being in really intense emotional situations is challenging. So let's dig into how you as the nurse can be a support to those of your patients and their loved ones who are getting some tough news, or maybe they're upset. Maybe they're upset at you. Maybe they're upset at the physician. Just how can we handle that in a caring and tactful way, but also a way where we're not getting all run over and people are yelling at us just because they're having a really tough time. So we're going to get into that now.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the FreshRN podcast. I'm Kati Kleber, and we're going to continue our little series on communication tips. And we're going to talk today about difficult conversations. So what is a difficult conversation? That could be maybe the patient's loved ones just had a meeting with the medical team and they found out that it's terminal. And they're done with that conversation, and then you're talking to them. That would be a difficult conversation. Maybe something went wrong. Maybe something was missed. Maybe surgery didn't go so well. Maybe a complication came up, and they're asking you questions. What happened? What did we miss? What in the world is going on? Maybe their loved one died while they weren't there. Or maybe surgery got canceled and it has to get moved, or maybe these labs didn't look right to go to surgery, or maybe they're no longer a surgical candidate, or there's only certain things we can do, or that it's, they found out that the stroke is life-changing and they're going to be in a nursing home the rest of their life, or, maybe they have this diagnosis where it's going to be really expensive, or, these big life-changing things. Unfortunately, that's a normal day at work for you guys. We walk in and kind of put our regular life on pause and then kind of dive into the depths of these really traumatic experiences of other people. So empathy is really important, but also not providing so much that you kind of get lost in it. I think it's important to understand what they're experiencing, but not really try to take it fully on yourself, because then it does overtake you and it makes it very difficult to provide your normal nursing care and go from patient to patient. But one of the ways I like to describe what they're experiencing is, think back in your life. Have you ever had something very life-changing occur? Maybe somebody that passed away and you found out about it. And there's those moments that you found out about it. Maybe a diagnosis that it wasn't a terminal situation, but it's changing everything. Finding out you were pregnant when you didn't mean to get pregnant. Finding out maybe that dream of whatever, that relationship, that job, that whatever is no longer there anymore or something. And have you ever just had that moment where time just kind of stops and it stands still? like the world's moving around you and everybody's doing other things, but this massive life-changing thing happened to you. That moment where time kind of stands still, you're like in shock, and it's difficult to like think, and your emotions are just kind of like are kind of like paralyzed almost. That moment, if you can think about a time that maybe you've had that, that is what a lot of people are experiencing in the hospital when they see these life-changing things unfold for themselves or their loved ones. So if you can kind of understand, like, whoa, they're not in this mental place where they can have regular conversation and what I'm saying they're going to retain or they're going to really understand. Like if you're in that shock phase and someone explains something complex, like neuro things, right? Or complex medical stuff, especially to people who are lay people and don't deal with medical stuff at all. Or if they're lay people who not only don't like medical stuff, but get really freaked out and nauseous and nervous around any medical things. You add all that together. It's very difficult to have like a therapeutic back and forth where they're able to verbalize what they're thinking and feeling, and you're able to provide that. What matters in these moments really is, more than anything, is presence, non-judgmental interaction, not expecting them to tell you how they feel exactly, because maybe they're like so paralyzed by it they can't even verbalize it. So just being there, validating experiences and emotions, and hey, you don't have to be brave. You know, you want to be brave for your loved one. You don't got to be brave for me. I'm your nurse. You're okay with me. It's a safe space. It's not this transactional, what do you need? Let me get it for you. Okay, bye. But just kind of just being there and being present, I think, is really important. If it's a very serious situation, the person that I really love to bring in is the chaplain. And people tend to assume you have to be a Christian that identifies with a specific faith to really utilize a chaplain. But something a lot of people don't realize, our hospital chaplains actually are trained to support people through crises. So they can be such a wonderful, presence to be there to, hey, how are you doing? What can I help you with? Kind of thing. They're great. I've had experiences where I've had families really in a tough situation, and they didn't know what the best decision was going to be. And the chaplain happened to be rounding. I wasn't smart enough at that time to to call the chaplain, but she was rounding, and she just went in and checked on them and processed some of the decision making. So what can really be helpful is they've just been told all this information, and it's very difficult for them to synthesize it and come to a conclusion and make a decision, especially if it's a decision that is going to be life or death for someone or really impact somebody else. So having a third party there that's not maybe the nurse or the doctor or their other loved ones in the room, but to sit down and say, okay, let me hear it, make sure I understand what you're saying. X is going on with this person. Their underlying belief system is this. What decision do you think would align with asking those questions to help guide their thought processes, not to tell them the right answer, but to facilitate thinking it through for themselves so they can come to the right answer for whatever that unique answer is going to be for that family. Or maybe it's not coming to an answer, it's just what just happened and processing it. And, you're feeling this, you saw this, and just having someone there to validate emotions wow, I can't believe you just went through that. I've had a situation where, I was, I can't remember if I was in the cardiac ICU, floated there, and, the patient was down at home. They did CPR for 30 minutes at home before this EMS got there and was able to bring him in and got a cabbage, an emergent cabbage, and I can't remember everything else. There might have been an anoxic brain injury. I can't remember. But this daughter is sitting there retelling me that she did CPR on her father for 30 minutes with someone else switching off. And I'm oh my gosh, like, side note, like, I didn't say this, but like, I can't imagine doing CPR on my own dad. Like, I would do it in the moment because it would be need to be done. I can't imagine that. And then I can't imagine going to the hospital and seeing him on a ventilator with a new massive incision in his chest and chest tubes. And like, that's traumatic. So just even having somebody say like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is really hard. And this is very difficult and very traumatic. And I'm so sorry you've had to go through this. Because they can think like, I just went through all this. I guess I just had to do it. And that's what I had to do. And they don't think about processing the emotions that go along with it. And, just having that safe space there as the nurse to just validate that can be incredibly therapeutic. It's nothing crazy advanced or like you have to like do this advanced reflective listening, but just like, whoa, this is really hard. And I'm really sorry you had to go through this. And communicating in an authentic, like, wow, kind of way, if that makes sense. Another thing too is when they're in that state, like I said, they're not like thinking necessarily super clear, and everybody manages their own emotions differently. And some people are very good at, I don't want to say controlling their emotions, having power over them, being able to acknowledge them and feel them and let them pass through them without it really, too heavily guiding their actions. Because just because someone isn't outwardly showing emotion doesn't mean they're not actively repressing them. Like, I've seen very traumatic things go down, and then like that should elicit a very big emotional response in someone, and they're very stoic. But likewise, I've seen the opposite, where they're very overt with their emotions. And some of that can be cultural. Some of that can be just how that person has learned to relate to their emotions. But saying all that, you may have someone who is not in the best state or having control or awareness of their, sending their emotions. Like, there might be like trying to take them out on you and it's your fault, or they're mad at you, or they're screaming. They're really not mad at you. They're mad at the situation, but you're just the closest person there. And you're not their family member that they've got to deal with. When they leave the hospital, they're never going to see you again, right? Like, you're the safe space to take it out on, right? My encouragement in those situations, because I've certainly been the receiver of that, especially working in critical care, is to not take that stuff personally. Remember, they're going through some crazy stuff, but like, there's a line there. You don't want to let them go nuts. You need to have some boundaries too. Like, hey, I get you're going through something really rough right now. I'm here to support you, but please don't curse at me, okay? But if you have someone who's continuing to do that, that's when you call security and you say, hey, there's a certain way we got to act here. And I understand you're going through some crazy stuff and this is really tough and I want to support you, but we need to have a mutual, not only respect, but I need to be able to be safe taking care of your loved one or whatever it is. I think here's my mental picture I like for this. I want you to picture that person who's kind of losing it. You are like this firmly rooted tree in the ground, right? You're firmly rooted and you've got lots of branches and leaves, and they're emotional. I don't want to outburst, but I don't want to say outburst because that sounds childish, but that's not what I mean it to be. But their kind of emotional release is mere wind rustling through your leaves. Let it pass through, but you're going to stand firm and you're not going to take in what they're saying as truth to you or as who you are. That's someone letting out some steam that they, for whatever reason, need to right now, but don't internalize it, okay? Let it pass through. Let the wave go. If you need to say something in the moment, go ahead and say it to maintain standing firm, but also caring, so that you can, feel safe and respected in your own work environment. And that ultimately results in better care. And sometimes people need that boundary, almost like, you think about like the kid who's like losing it, but they're doing things they're not supposed to do, but they need that boundary. They need to know, hey, I get that you're experiencing this, but we can't do that. All right. Like, that's too much. let's chill out a little bit, or let's figure out a different way to deal with this, but we can't do X, Y, Z, if that makes sense. People really appreciate when you're really direct and kind, but and you're not beating around the bush and unclear, and they're like, okay, so does this mean he's dying or not? I don't understand. Can you, they just want to know definitively. And sometimes it can be very scary to say the definitive statement. But if you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is the right thing, it is your duty to communicate that honestly and caring in a caring way. Now, hopefully, if there's any like life or death stuff, the physician is the one who is breaking that news to them. But sometimes it's not always, sometimes you're the first one or that they encounter, and sometimes, so the more direct and caring you can be, the better. Kind of rip the Band-Aid in a sense. Don't slowly pull it off as hard as it can be. They appreciate being direct, and it's not like you're kind of toying with, well, there might be hope, and actually, no, just clearly say what's going on. They appreciate and need that, even if you're worried that it's not going to feel so hot. You also don't want to provide false hope, just wanting to be positive. Like, I've seen nurses, and I've done this myself, where I have a terrible patient situation in front of me, and I am talking to them, and you can tell they're clinging for something positive. And if you just pick the one tiny little insignificant thing, well, their white blood cell count went, is one better. Like, that turns into false hope, and it's not actually an accurate picture. And that actually does a disservice and can actually undo some of the work maybe the medical team has done in educating them and understanding how bad things are right now. So really don't recognize in yourself if you're like, oh, I really just want them to have some good news. Make sure that it's accurate, and it's not like you have this incredibly terrible picture and you're picking out this one little thing that's actually kind of insignificant to the overall picture just to make them feel better. Honesty and providing an accurate picture is the most loving and caring thing that we can do, even if it doesn't seem like it.
Now that you are a master of communication with all situations at work, we're going to dig into how to communicate with your own family members, your spouse, maybe a serious relationship that you are in, like where you're living with someone, or your family members, close friends, people that you're regularly talking to. It is so important for us to have social and emotional connections with others. It can be very difficult, though, if those people do not understand how difficult it is for you at work, especially if you're dealing with a really intense setting where you're seeing trauma on a daily basis. So we're going to dig into that. But first, I did want to share with you guys one last freebie that I have. I thought about all the abbreviations that I use every day, like at the bedside, hearing things, and how I write down things quickly for a report to enable me to get through a report quickly, but also phone calls and just writing things down so I can understand stuff quickly. You'll have those lists of medical abbreviations. They're very long. A lot of them are not used on a regular basis by nurses. So I thought of all the ones that I used, and I put them on a little sheet so that you could kind of familiarize yourself with those. It might enable you to understand what other people are saying with more ease. It might help you get through a report faster, both in receiving report and giving report. And so that is all available for free in the link in the description of this episode, where you can click on that, and I will send that bad boy to you for free. So that is my last freebie that I'm going to mention. All right, guys, let's dig into how to talk to your own loved ones.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the FreshRN podcast, and I am your host, Kati Kleber. Today, we're going to finish up our communication series. So we talked about tips to communicate with one another on the unit, tips to communicate with those other members of the healthcare team that come by the unit. We talked about how to talk to patients and their loved ones, also difficult conversations. But finally, I want to talk about something that you're not going to hear about in school: how to talk to your own loved ones. as you transition into nursing, it is a lifestyle change. You needed a certain level of support during nursing school, and that changes when you get into the profession. And I wanted to talk about ways to navigate that transition and communicate well with your loved ones. So one thing that I've found that is, if your loved one is not a nurse, which I'm sure there are many of you out there that have spouses or significant others that are nurses, but unless someone truly has done that day to day at the bedside as a nurse, they really don't understand what's being asked of you. So for those of you who don't have, that family member that lives with you, and when I say significant other, I'm talking, it doesn't necessarily have to be a spouse, but someone who you guys do life together. You live together, you do laundry and groceries and life together. The transitioning from that normal school schedule is very different to shift work. Homework goes away, but now you have 12-hour shifts. And to the outside looking in, a 12-hour shift and only working 3 days a week sounds great, because a lot of people are used to a desk job or a job where they can sit for a lot of time and they can take their time with what they're doing and focus and concentrate, or answer phones, go take a break when they want to. They're not thinking... I don't think that they understand when you're at work, you're running from patient room to patient room, documenting so you don't get sued, documenting so you don't put something in incorrectly and then a physician makes the wrong decision based upon it and can kill someone, right? Like, the stress level is nothing like it is at like a desk job, or at, maybe and I don't want to disparage somebody who's doing those jobs and say there's no stress. It's a different level of stress versus people missing a deadline or missing payroll or missing whatever versus someone dying, right? So people outside looking in, I don't think always understand and appreciate that. And especially if your significant other is someone who has difficulty understanding the experience of another person, this can be even more challenging. So communication is going to be really important. One of the things I encourage you to do is to let them know, hey, I just want to tell you what work is like for me, and do this in a time when you're not angry and you need to understand and blah, blah, blah. But, hey, I'm getting ready to do this, and I want you to understand kind of what my day-to-day at work is like, and maybe why I can't answer the phone or respond to the text messages right away, and what it actually looks like. I walk in and I get report on 5 patients, and from that moment on, I am like their gatekeeper for everything. If one of them starts to code, if one of them starts to have a low blood pressure and bad and not doing well, it's my job to deal with it, while also taking care of 4 other people who might be going home, or a physician is mad about this, and a family member is upset about this, and it's my job to fix all of those things. And honestly, I go 4 or 5 hours without sitting down or even going to the bathroom. It's so busy. I'm literally working moment to moment. Like, if you can imagine the busiest moments of your life where you're like, here, I got to get this and go do this is really quick, and I don't even have time to think. I'm like that for 12 hours in a row. And even when I go to the bathroom and go get a break, I feel bad because I know I'm getting farther and farther behind with the other things that I'm doing. The more that you can kindly communicate that without saying it in a way where it's you're telling, like, you should have empathy for me and you need to understand, more like, I just want you to understand what I'm going through, so that next week when you text me at 7 p.m. and I don't answer until 8:30, maybe it's because I got an admission that was coding and I could not physically move fast enough to push medication into that patient's IV to save their life or whatever. The more that your significant other can understand about your day-to-day, the better, so that when those situations come up, they have that level of understanding where they can be like, oh, okay, some serious things went down or are probably going down. She or he texts me whenever they can, and it's been like 5 hours. Okay, I get it. And one thing I do encourage you to do, though, is make sure that your loved one has the unit phone number, because I know a lot of you often will have a phone that you carry around with you that has a specific number, but that number probably changes every shift. Make sure that they have the unit phone number that they can call directly, because I've had times where something goes down at the end of the shift, and it's like I'm so in the zone, I forget I even have a cell phone, right? I forget I even have a phone number, right? Your loved ones might get worried. You're supposed to be home an hour and a half ago. Did you get in a car accident? Did you get in whatever? Like, get into a routine where maybe right after you give report, you send a text. I'm heading to my car. I'm on my way. So that they know, okay, he or she is leaving. I at least know that, and that they're done with work. So that kind of cuts down on worry, because it's very easy to do that. So, like my husband, I remember at the beginning of our marriage was my first year of nursing, and I was also very inefficient at that time too, so it took me longer to do things. And I remember being like 2 hours late, and him being like, I had no idea where you were. You didn't answer your phone. I don't know how to get a hold of, like, I didn't know if everything was okay. And I felt so bad that I had like worried him like that. But if you can give him the phone number, or give your loved one the phone number of the unit, where it's like, okay, if it's been over X amount of time and I haven't contacted you, call the unit, see if I'm like there kind of thing, so that they at least know that they have a phone number to call to find out if you're okay. So that can be helpful. Expect missteps, expect it to get messy as you settle into this new lifestyle. It's so challenging to acclimate to, and you think that you're just supposed to do it because you're like, I'm a nurse, I signed up for this, but you don't really feel the weight and intensity of those 12 hours until you walk through it. So but again, that person who doesn't do it thinks, oh, you go to work at 7, you're off at 7, we could go grab dinner at 8. And you're like, okay, so that's a soft 7. I don't know if I'm going to get done at 7. Sometimes I can't even get out of there at 8:30. Like, we can't commit to things. Like, that was kind of a rule for us. I'm never going to do anything before work, because then I'd be getting up at like 4:30 in the morning, and that's not great, right? And then after work, who knows if I'll be there? It's not maybe there were times where it's like, hey, we're going to go hang out with some friends. Can you meet us after work? Great. I will try my best to be there, but there's a chance I might get off really late, and it might be too hard to do that. And then also, I always felt gross going anywhere after work, and I was in my scrubs, like, ugh, like, you don't do that, guys. Go shower. But then it's like you get home and you shower, and then you're like, okay, I'm not going anywhere. You want to get in bed, right? So I highly encourage you to lower those expectations of getting things done on the day that you work, and making sure that your loved one fully understands that. Because again, they might think not only will you be off on time, which when I think about it from their perspective makes sense. Your shift is over at 7. Why are you staying later? They don't understand the workflow, the operational side of it, where it is definitely a suggestion, like 7, like you're actually going to be off at 7 and actually have energy after that. So making sure that they understand that, and that they're not like, oh, okay, let's plan things for after work. No, guys, no. We don't do that. Okay. It's too mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting. And if you're finding that they're wanting to do that, or that you're going out and doing things, but then you're exhausted, maybe that's a time to step back and be like, wow, okay, I need to figure out ways that I can take better care of my body and myself, and pushing myself by going out after work or doing whatever, and then I'm dead the next day. Not worth it. Maybe we need to schedule stuff on my days off, kind of thing. Next, I want you to get a kind of pre and post shift routine together, so that they kind of understand and know what to expect. Boy, I think like the meaning and the thing about my whole, if I could rename my podcast, it would be Managing Expectations. To be honest, I think that helps with stress so much, and missteps and anger and whatever, and us getting upset at each other because we're expecting one thing, but something else happens. So if you expect them to make you breakfast, or, them to do laundry, or them to clean up while you're at work and they had the day off, but they didn't, like, the more that you can get into that routine. Okay. So so to give you an example, for me, it would be that, the morning I would kind of get things set out so that, and I'm one of those people that doesn't get up early. Like, I get up the last possible second that I have to before I need to be somewhere. And that has been the story of my life. That's not going to like change all of a sudden. So my husband knew, like, in the morning, like, if he got up to work out or something, like, there's no chit chat. There's no, hey, let's eat breakfast together. No, I am on borrowed time, my friend. I am already late. Like, so I'd get everything set out and I'd get out the door, and then the understanding was the 3 days a week that I worked, he would make dinner. So I wasn't trying to like do that when I got home at an unpredictable time and utterly exhausted. But that also came with the understanding that he's going to make dinner, assuming I'll be home on time. If I think I'm going to be late, it was my job to communicate that to him. So if things started to go downhill or a late admission or whatever, I needed to send him a quick text. Now, that is also with the understanding that sometimes things happen where someone codes and you don't have time to do that. But that is the rare exception and not the rule. So if the majority of the time, if I'm going to be late, I let him know, to be respectful of his like time to make dinner, right? And like get that together for me. And also so he's not worrying, that's what I can do. Right. And then he's the one that's making dinner, and then it's us working together. And then the way that it worked out was then the days that I didn't work, I usually made dinner. And then, 1 or 2 nights a week, we'd go out to eat or something like that. So it split up the work evenly. It was just expected that, it wasn't like I was coming home from a 12-hour shift and he's like, what are you going to make for dinner, right? Like, that wasn't happening. It was the understanding that we communicated with, okay, can you make dinner the days that I work? And that worked out really well for us. And routines and managing expectations, especially if you're working night shift and you're going to be sleeping while the house is awake and people are awake, and protecting your sleep. And that's knowing that that's going to be the priority for those days that you're working. So really, communication about your expectations is a way that you support each other. And it makes life so much easier if you're not moving from miscommunication and misstep to miscommunication. And I think that we have to take the ownership to explain and say the things that we need to feel supported, because our lifestyle as a shift nurse, especially if you're working night shift, is so completely different than the 9 to 5, normal job, even if it's teaching or working at a bank or working in a financial institution or working from home. A lot of people are working from home these days. So, keeping that in mind, I think that is really helpful. And another thing that I want to end on is assuming the best in one another. Like, let's say if I'm late because a code happened or because I got a late admission. What if my husband assumed you're just trying to undermine my efforts, and like you were taking your time and not getting here soon and weren't like acting like what I was doing was important? Like, no. Or what if I come home and you never make dinner for me or have food ready for me? This is ridiculous, like that kind of thing. But what if he could just assume, hey, wait, maybe she's late because she's genuinely trying to get home as quickly as she can, but something serious came up that she can't, whatever, which is the truth. What if he forgot to make dinner and he wasn't putting it off, but he just forgot and was really late with it and threw something together or whatever? Assuming the best in one another, and not that it's this personal jab to undermine you or like whatever, hurt you, I think can be really helpful in a relationship. And especially as you communicate and acclimate to the lifestyle of being a nurse, because it does take quite a bit of work in a relationship, to live together and do life together when your work lifestyles are vastly different. It takes care, communication, assuming the best in one another, genuinely wanting to support one another. And when you can each are doing that, then you're both end up being very supported. And managing those expectations. It goes so far in a relationship. And then it's just so much more fulfilling. And you need all that support you can, just as a human, but also as a nurse, like having someone on your team who cares about you, and is a safe space to go home to, and isn't this going from one chaotic environment to another one. Like, that creates so much stress and pain and exhaustion, and it's just that certainly can become unsustainable. So I guess I want to finish by saying that having care in the communication with your own loved ones is just as important as these work ones as well, because you're a whole human. You're not a nurse and that's the only thing that matters, right? You've got different roles in your life and they all matter. And it's about getting it all to work together and not about elevating your job and your nursing above everything else and making all of that work around it, if that makes sense. Because if you have that expectation, you're going to have a lot of loved ones in your life that feel slighted, that feel like theirs doesn't matter, or what they don't matter nearly as much as your profession. And that's a tough obstacle to overcome in a relationship. So just to encourage you to sow intention and care and time into your personal relationships as well.
All right, guys, I hope you feel more confident in dealing with communication situations at work and even at home. So I hope this empowers you. I hope this makes you feel more confident at the bedside. And I think that just makes your shift easier and less scary, right? So if you want to check out any of the resources that I mentioned, we have links to everything in the description of this episode. So that includes the free mini course on report tips for nurses, our comprehensive MedSurg crash course called MedSurg Mindset, our free cardiac assessment checklist, and our most used medical abbreviation, also free, that list as well. So you can check out also our latest course catalog. So whether you're a med-surg nurse, neuro, cardiac, ICU, orthopedic, is that all I have? Okay, I think that's all I have off the top of my head. And you can purchase any of those courses individually. We also have precepting, charge nurse, a general critical thinking course, and a general skills course. All of those are available. You can purchase them individually, but we have also introduced something called our FreshRN All Access Pass. So this enables you to access all of our paid content for a monthly fee. So instead of purchasing one, having lifetime access to that, you can pay a monthly fee and have access to everything while you maintain your membership. So you can check out the All Access Pass as well as our latest, most up-to-date course catalog with the links in the description. And finally, I just hope you'll enjoy all that content and join our email list. So I have a link to that as well, where I share tips, encouragement, stories from the bedside, and more. And I also send updates on our latest content so that you can stay up to date on everything that we're doing over here at FreshRN. So thanks again, nurses, and stay fresh.
All right, so that wraps up Katie's mega episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and there's just so much valuable information in there. Katie is just so wonderful at navigating some of these complex topics, and communication is definitely one of those. Again, I would love if you would go and follow her show at FreshRN. You can check that out on your favorite podcast player. I've also got links in the episode notes for where you can find Katie online. And I'll see you back here next week for more of the Straight A Nursing Podcast, where we are going to be diving into what can be a pretty scary medical condition having to do with very, very, very high blood pressure. See you then. This podcast is brought to you by Straight A Nursing, a proud member of the Airwave Media Network. For more educational podcasts, check out airwavemedia.com. And for more nursing-related content, go to straightanursingstudent.com.
Have you ever wished that you had a direct line to your pediatrician to ask all the questions that constantly crop up while parenting? We sure have. That's why we launched the Bites of Health podcast. Every morning, we'll answer a commonly asked pediatric question in 5 minutes or less. You can tune in while you're making your second cup of coffee or from the school drop-off line. So be sure to tune in to Bites of Health, streaming now.